recommendations, there is guidelines that are out there, and I am part of one of the, actually going to keep in the spirit of SuperHeroes, my secret identity, to give you the bio here, but along those, I know it's going to get cheesy, trust me, but along these lines, we want to look at the proliferation that's going on, especially with the APCO integration work group. And what that is that this is a work group started by APCO to get industry leaders and application developers, giving them the ability to help define the guidelines so that we have a standard we can refer to, so people in public safety have the ability to kind of fight for what they want, right, without having to fragment the market that's there. So you can understand very quickly is if you have an application, your neighboring agency has an application, but neither one talk together, that doesn't help out a whole lot, right, especially in the world of information sharing and information on demand. So having the ability to proliferate the applications, the APIs, the interfaces, various things along those lines, we want to get ahead of that market. So just a little bit of background on me. I am currently the VP of Engineering at SceneDoc. Was a 15-year Motorolan, recently came over to SceneDoc as of 2 months ago, so leading that effort that's going on. Applications ecosystem and development partner. And where the problem of this came in was as we were working with more and more partners, we realized very quickly that there was no real common interface between all these application providers. And when you think of an application developer, everybody is the center of the universe, right? Everybody wants to own the data, everybody wants to have screen time, and when you imagine an iPhone, an Android device, everybody's competing for that same real estate on that screen, it can overwhelm the end user, the police officer, anybody using that device very quickly because there's a bunch of bangs and blips and you got to look at me because this piece of information is available to you. You need to know about this right away. And all that kind of information can overwhelm someone in their cognitive load as well. So what that means is the amount of information their brain can take in at one time before they just put the device down and say, this thing is going crazy, I don't want to use it because it's distracting more so than it's helping me in the field. So we're going to kind of take that approach and certain guidelines and certain things to reference within this area. You can also connect with me on social media and also the SceneDoc company as well. So I'm at Ryan Seick, so if you want to cue that up and have any questions after the presentation, we'll have time for Q&A. But if anything, have any questions afterwards, please let me know. So one of the big things you're looking at is that there's two different scenarios, right? There's very simple aspects as far as just a little fender bender, right? But there's also something along the lines of how do you document if you're working with a hospital and trying to convey the scene other than voice communications, how do you document different aspects and things you're looking at, right? Something as horrific as that multi-car accident that's going on. How do you convey that message to a doctor saying, if you're an EMS, a medical professional trying to extract people out of that vehicle, which one do you attack first, right? You got your aspects, but if you can rely on some input from an outside source, it's an expert in that type of response, how do you convey that to them with regular aspects you're looking at right now, right? It's very difficult to do. Minor fender benders, not that much of an impact that's going on right now, but you still want to be able to document the scene that's going on, right? Having the ability to do that. And we're going to go into some additional around these aspects. So, when you look at the users that are currently out there, right? It could be administration, right? It could be the chiefs that are out there. It could be the frontline personnel, the first responders, detectives, firefighters, EMS professionals, utility workers, second responders, government, even students that are out there, right? Everyone within this ecosystem has a different need, a different role, a different responsibility that they want to have access to. And you have to have the ability to fulfill that, right? This is all an information flow as well. And what we can do with this is actually through various aspects, various ways to get information in, through interfaces, you have the ability to coordinate all those information together so it's readily available. So if a student gets in a fight, for instance, in the afternoon, the police department gets notified about it so they're aware that there might be repercussions afterwards, right? There might be somebody at 3 o'clock wants to get their butt kicked at the bike rack, right? They know about that ahead of time, so they're at that location at 3 o'clock before that student gets bullied or beat up or whatever along those lines. So having that ability to get that information back and forth between the different agencies is also imperative, especially in mutual aid scenarios. So having the ability to know where the responders coming from a police agency versus their ETA versus fire officials versus EMS that could be responding all to a mutual aid scenario. All this information is readily available, but the problem we're finding is that it's not readily available for each one of those agencies to consume. Right? So each one's got their own siloed version of it, but how do you unlock that potential? We're going to talk about that. So, providing safer cities. One of the key engagements right now is citizen engagement. And what that means is how do you get the citizen to contribute data to that information portal, but also how do you disseminate that data back out to the citizen, right? There's a lot of things that are coming as far as alerting. There might be, especially with the weather systems and the alerting on our smartphones. If there's severe weather in the area, you get the little buzzer that goes off, lets you know, there's a severe weather, tornado warning, whatever it may be within the area, earthquake just happened this morning in California, for instance. All that information is available. But the thing with the citizens is that they're greedy, right? They want to have the ability to have the information right now. They don't want to search for it. We've got to make it easy for them to find, or just tell me when I need to know about it, but don't continually bug me about the information that I want to know. But getting information from the citizens, right, is equally important, because now you want to find out what's going on from the citizens' perspective, right? If there's a pothole that needs to be fixed and they're constantly hitting that, and there's something they're dissatisfied from the utility market, right? They want to have that ability to say, okay, well, I want to document this without having to call someone. I might think like I'm bothering the city, or just let it be, right? But if you make it easy for them to contribute, that information can be readily available through the systems as well. One of the big things too, especially when it comes to agencies, is that budgets are getting smaller. So the return on investment that you're going to be putting into a specific system needs to have immediate return on investment. You need to have some way to have some kind of efficiency, some kind of cost savings, something along the lines that's going to provide them additional information where they're going to see value in the product, right? And it's not something just to try, it's not something just to have, but they need to see immediate value in the product in order for them to really tie into that system, but have it used on a regular basis. If it's one of those things that they're only using on an emergency basis or a large-scale event, they're not getting a whole lot of return on investment on that, right? But it's something they need to have on a day-to-day basis that they can see immediate value on. So reducing costs in some way, such as paper, ink, travel, anything along those lines, making you more efficient for those, you can show those immediate dollars saved immediately through that. And then also create easy ways to access data when they need it. So if it's something where they can't get to something, or they have to log in 8 times in order for them to get to a certain product, that's going to end up in the front driver's seat or in some drawer somewhere, and nobody's going to use that product, right? And now you're wasting money. So some of the things you're looking at too, cloud is a little bit confusing right now for individuals, right? There's hosted, there's all these terms. There's hosted, there's cloud, there's all these different terms that are out there, right? There's SaaS, software as a service, all these there's also platform as a service. So there's all these different terms that are kind of being thrown within this market. When you look at this, the biggest concern around the cloud is that the data doesn't reside behind the 4 walls of that agency, right? Will it be hacked? Will it have something along those lines? Can I get access to the outside? Well, for all the U.S. residents, we know that as secure as our IRS system was, right? All the social security numbers and all the birth records, all the other stuff is there, is great. And they're supposed to be very secure, but we know what happened there. But when you look at it, more than likely, that cloud service is more secure than your current IT infrastructure is. Just because there's dedicated people that are doing it, and it's not legacy old type software that's still securing your network before you access the cloud, right? Or hasn't been updated or hasn't been serviced from an IT manager. But that cloud security is actually probably more up to date than the current existing IT infrastructure you might have. So by going to that, that's one of the squashing technologies that are out there. But it also saves you money. By going to the cloud, it actually saves you money because the IT cost per hour, per megabyte, per gigabyte on a cloud service is much less than it is for your on-prem infrastructure. So it makes it very cost effective as well. So the other thing too is that right now we've got 40%, and this is actually taken from APCO's, APCO's IACP user survey last year. 40% of the current agencies right now have a plan to go to the cloud, and that number is increasing year over year, right? 17% have already gone to the cloud, but the data sharing opportunities open up very quickly once you go to the cloud. Okay, so what that means is that now you have a common repository for multiple agencies to now share data very quickly, because it doesn't actually leave the walled garden of the cloud, right? So your cloud actually replaces the silo that you have currently at your infrastructure or your current agency, right? And the way to get to that is interfaces that are available for that, but easy interfaces, and I'll get into that in a second. But the other cool thing too about this is that the big buzzwords right now, big data, analytics, link analysis, all those types of opportunities open up, because now that you have a common repository of the latest and greatest information coming in, you now have the ability to data mine all that information that's there. And one thing I think that agencies are actually either they're not aware of or they're selling themselves short on is the fact that they have legacy data that can be brought into the 21st century and now has the ability to unlock the gold mine of each individual agency into the realm of bringing this into the big data analytic aspects, right? They have so much intelligence that's sitting there that can help them break cases, that can help them monitor certain aspects and get reporting efficiencies, KPIs, anything along those lines. And every agency is a gold mine, right? Application developers are now realizing that, and we're developing for it to help use those use cases and unlock the intelligence and the data that's sitting at each agency's site, right? So when you look as an agency, when you look at these things, right, you need to understand that you're sitting on a gold mine that can be mined for great intelligence, real-time information, and information sharing. So I'm going to jump into some of the stuff that the APCO API group is actually working with, but these are things you want to look for when you're developing applications, right? And this is where the requests are coming in. So using standards-based information or interfaces. What this means is that RESTful APIs is pretty much a standard, right? It makes super easy integration back and forth. Pretty much every modern agency and every modern application developer uses these things to send information back and forth, right? So RESTful APIs. Open source software and libraries, okay? Nothing doesn't have to be custom application development every time for security. In fact, more than likely, the open source community is probably more secure than writing the code yourself, and it's more efficient, right? Because it's something you can reuse, and there's tons of people looking at it specifically for security holes and patches and upgrades and bug fixes and everything else. So using open source libraries make it very efficient, very effective to get things done very quickly. Using non-proprietary, less costly interfaces. So right now you have integrators, you have it could be incumbent systems that you already have on site that if you're paying a maintenance plan and you want to integrate to some other feature, it's going to cost you $100 grand to do that with one interface, right? But with these suggestions that are out there, you have the ability to actually find those interfaces or develop those interfaces very quickly, or there's smaller integrators that can do it more efficiently and faster as well. So having the ability to highlight those. This gives you the faster time to market. It's easier to implement because it is something that's already been developed. You're not starting from scratch. So you have that ability to pull that. And it gives you that ability to not be locked into one vendor's ecosystem. As much as all the vendors would love to have the complete involvement of things that are going on, the power lies in the flexibility and the uniqueness of what you want to offer back and forth, right? So having the ability to have the information going from your specific applications, your specific devices that you've chosen, but sharing that information back and forth is paramount, because now the applications that are looking for a certain specific type of data have the ability to now share that information back and forth. And then last thing here is insist that have the ability to have your infrastructure work with other applications. So this goes back to the whole aspect of, don't get locked in, right? Insist that these things have open resources and that you have the ability to share that information back and forth. Because once again, every app developer is selfish just because everybody wants to be the center of the universe, right? Everybody wants to own the data. Everybody wants to do that, but it's your data, right? So you have the ability to complete that infrastructure of information that's there. So we're going to bring some stability in here too. So this is something that is pretty important, just based on the fact that there's high availability out there, geo-redundancy, 5 nines type of uptime. If these are tools that you're going to invest in, you want to have the ability to make sure that these are available when you need them, right? You don't want them offline. You don't want them wishy-washy, because number one, your resources aren't going to use them if it's like you log in and you get that login failure, server down. Login failure, server down, right? That's going to happen once or twice, and that thing goes in the driver's seat, and it's like you can't use that as a tool, right? It's something you have to rely on. Some of the consumer applications that are out there, it's okay if Twitter crashes when you're sending a tweet out, right? No big deal, you just enter the tweet again. But if you're entering an incident data, right, you got some field format, you got somebody's video testimony, something like that, and that application crashes and loses that entire 15-minute video interview, there's going to be some repercussions on that, right? That's evidence that you're no longer going to get, or there's some key component that they no longer have. So these applications can't just be the same thing as a consumer-grade device, or a consumer-grade type application. You got to be robust. Geo-redundancy data storage, and what that means is that if one server location goes down, you've got you're not going to be down based upon the aspect of California and the earthquake happened out there this morning. The East Coast is okay, right? So you've got the server location in two places that have that ability to get information back and forth. So your data is always available. Scalability. So if you have a large scale event, it may be great for a 45-person agency that's just having data going back and forth. But what happens when you have a large scale event? You've got additional responders that are going to come through, right? You have to be able to scale it quickly, right? You're not going to be able to go out there and say, well, I got to provision 1,500 devices with this software in a very quick manner, right? But if it's something that's accessible and scalable and you plan for it, it's immediately available for you. Faster, lower price load balancers. This basically handles the surge that you're going to have, right? So load balancers are pretty much things that you're looking for as far as taking the additional load of users sending and contributing information to your system, right? Have that ability to make sure it's efficient and plan for it. This is a key one: offline access, right? We talk about a whole bunch of different aspects. We talk about FirstNet with the Band 14 system that's coming on board. Well, FirstNet, Band 14 is not everywhere. But if you have applications that you want to go between different networks and stuff like that, there might be a gap between those network systems. How do you keep that data continuity across the board? But even if you go into a basement of apartment complex or something like that, and your cell coverage goes away, right? You still need the ability to document certain information to get access to that data or to capture that data based upon where you're at. So data access and having an offline capability is paramount. Auto failover without interruption. So having the ability to know that if a server goes down, that you have a failover to a secondary system, so that there is no downtime, right? So this is where all the redundancy comes into play. These are all high availability requirements. And this is something required for all government deployments or users that are out there. So if you're looking to get into that government space, this is something that you want to have, and it is required in order for you to hit those 5 nines. So it's not okay just to have one server up and running, sitting in somebody's house, when power goes out, and all of a sudden the whole network's down, right? Some of the smaller vendors, it's one person that's developing the application. So these are all things, all the questions you need to ask in order to do that. So speed and low latency. Nobody likes to wait, right? Everyone hates the spinners, right? You're waiting for it, now it's there, right? Well, uploads, wait for it, right? You gotta have that ability to have local aspects, local storage, sending that information available when that network is available, especially in an environment like this. Try sending pictures out, everyone's got their cell tower, it's saturated. Same thing with Spectrum, right? If a major event happens, Boston bombing for instance, they shut down the entire network system because they were fearful of anybody having any kind of phone explosives that they could trigger remotely. So they shut all the phones down. So now you've got all your first responders on an AT&T or Verizon network or some carrier network. The system gets shut down for safety reasons, but they've got no way to communicate that information, which once again shows you how the offline mode is important, right? You got to have that ability to have these guys still operate, even though there's no regular network coverage that are out there. So some of these are technical terms a little bit, but I'm the engineering manager, so we'll go into these a little bit deeper here. So WebSockets for real-time updates. This is probably as simple as if something happens or something gets submitted from the field, it immediately shows up somewhere else without you having to do a refresh. Okay? So something where you don't have to pull it down, it's something you get notified right away, or the environment updates automatically without having to say you refresh every 20 seconds because you want to see the latest and greatest information, right? No user wants to do that. Next one, no refreshing on web-based portals. So HTML5, great technology, all browser-based. You don't have to install anything on devices that are out there, but you got to make sure that information is real time, right? It can't be stale 5 minutes and then some key event comes in that you don't know about because you didn't hit the refresh button, right? Highlighting updates for glance viewing. This is especially important in the field, right? These guys don't want to go through all this information of different icons, different things that are there. Only show me the deltas. Only show me the updates of things that are happening. What's changed from the last time I looked at this? So having the ability just to glance at it, because if they're looking down at the device, they're looking at their monitor within the vehicle, they're not looking out to where they need to be looking at, right? It puts them at risk. So having the ability to glance very quickly and get the updates of information that's out there. Low latency read and write speeds for cloud storage. So this is less sync time. So making sure the data pipes are available, but also making sure that the efficiencies and the operations of how you sync that data is quick and operational, right? It's not. You can't afford to wait, right? When information in real time, especially when we're all talking about real time, having that information available and ready for these people to view that information and content is critical. Storing forward to large files. This is especially important within body-worn cameras. Okay, so right now you're creating these huge high-definition videos that are recording this information. But imagine sending a 1.5 gig file, uploading it across a cellular network, right? The data plans right now for each individual officer, maybe it's 40 gigs per month, right? So now he's limited based upon the data he's going to be sending across that network. Plus, it's going to take him time to do that, right? So there's a whole bunch of aspects as far as storing forward and having these applications smart enough to know when do you have the ability to do this, right? So Wi-Fi access points that it can offload to, right? Having a smart capability to understand how the information gets uploaded. Also, evolving solution and taking advantage of new features and dynamics. This one is key because, and I think people are opening up to it a little bit more. What this means is that, there's certain aspects, legacy applications that are out there. Well, you may not get an upgrade for 2 years, 3 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, right? You pay the maintenance plans, you're supposed to be getting those upgrades, right? But in a consumer world, we're used to getting those Facebook updates or those Twitter updates or those application updates as they get posted, right? And our phone automatically does it, right? In a SaaS world, a software as a service model, you have that ability now where you're always going to get the latest and greatest functionality, as long as it doesn't change the workflow completely 180 degrees, right? But it causes unique additional training purposes that need to come in. So if there's a great new feature that's out there, you got to train the people to go, well, it used to work like this, but now it works like this, and you don't want to have confusion on your application, right? So training aspects, new videos, new walkthroughs that happen for the specific product is critical whenever a new update, any kind of changes that happen. If it's back-end stuff and just makes it more efficient, more, less latency, whatever it may be, you don't need to train on that. But if it's direct user impact, you need to have the ability to have proper training for that specific aspect. So security, this is paramount, right? Seick just has guidelines on what we need to do to secure the data that's out there, especially if you use a mobile device, if you have a device in the vehicle. Two-factor authentication is paramount, right? Having the ability to know that this is the individual that is specifically using this product, right? You don't want to share passwords, right? They might have shared devices. You might have shared iPhone, you might have shared vehicles, especially, A shift, B shift, you might have a C shift in there, right? Session-based access, so giving that user the ability to, within the session that they have, giving them a certain aspect that it times out. So you don't give someone unlimited access just to have that information up and running and available, right? You have to have a certain session that's available for that individual. So if he's on for 12 hours, and your shift's on for 12 hours, he may need to log in again after 12 hours. Seick just tells you that if it's a mobile device, it's got to log out every hour for that user to log in again, right? To make sure that user is still that same user. This is a key one, role and group-based access. And what that means is that there's individual users that are out there, but when you start talking about how you have to provision, and you may be uniquely provisioning these users from time to time, right? Try doing that, trying to reassign roles in a high-pressure situation. You might have 250, you might have 2,500 users that you need to provision for certain aspects. If you provision them into groups, you may only have 5 groups versus the 2,500 people that are out there, where you can assign different roles and different aspects of that application or the specific task that they're on. So having the ability to have that kind of access and control over who sees what where, because it might not be that you want to give everyone access to everything. You might have visitors coming in for a mutual aid type scenario that you want to give them minimal situational awareness for, right? But having that ability to quickly provision that information into those specific roles and groups and having them provisioned ahead of time, it eliminates a whole bunch of problems, especially going forward. One of the biggest requests that we get is Active Directory logins and user provisioning. I already have Active Directory on my premise, right? I'm already using Microsoft Office. I'm already using Microsoft Outlook. I already have a directory that's up there. This allows for the single sign-on and authentication aspects that are out there, right? So if you have that, you're already ahead of the game. But also, you need to insist that these applications actually tie into this as well, because then you only have one sign-on that this guy needs to log into, guy or girl, right? Because this actually allows the provisioning where you don't, this solves the problem for the 8 different systems I need to log into, where the guy was on shift the first half hour, and now all of a sudden, the first half hour is signing into the 8 different applications and waiting for them all to sync up, right? I want to log in one time, right? That's all I want to do. Or they forgot their password on this one system and then they just don't use it because they don't remember it. So the other thing too is data at rest, data in transit. So data at rest is pretty self-explanatory. It's what's on a database somewhere, right? If you're not using it, just waiting to be accessed. Data in transit is more important based on the fact that this is what the syncing aspect is, right? Sending data from one point to another. You don't want to lose that anywhere along the line, but you also don't want somebody listening in anywhere in that linking out or the linkage as well. AES 256-bit encryption. Insist on that. Right? This is a standard that's out there that allows you to basically have that security mechanism that allows you to have that link to link, from source all the way to database and server on the back end, and nothing in between, so you don't have man-in-the-middle attacks that are just siphoning data off and knowing where the resources are at. Encrypted databases, you don't want somebody coming in with a thumb drive, plugging it in, downloading your entire database, and then shooting it out, right? Could be a disgruntled employee, something along those lines. We've seen plenty of that through all these different Home Depots and all the break-ins. It was an inside job, right? I'm just going to look at the user database and plug it in. Here's all your credit cards, gone, right? All that kind of stuff. And then CJIS compliant data centers. Right now, Azure Government Cloud, I know Amazon Web Services is also bringing that together. So bringing all that information together and insisting that if you move to the cloud, that there are people that have taken steps, right? These are individual, especially within Azure's case. They have specific data centers that are all CJIS background checked employees at that location, right? Only certain people have access to the database rooms and things that are there. They have a completely separate data center, actually 4 completely different data centers that don't reside or mingle with the public cloud as well. So it's ultra secure, it's as secure or more secure than the IT infrastructure that you may have at your agency, right? So the fear of the cloud is really, it doesn't have to be a fear, it just has to be an education on what's there, right? And it makes it entirely a whole lot easier to get to that too. So when we talk about what makes up a killer application, right? So I say Superman full of that, but not that I'm that. we're showing that in the slide. So what makes a killer application, right? Mobile security and sandbox data access. What that means is online and offline access, right? Secure the device. If it's a mobile device, if they lose the device, right? The adage is that is it going to be, if you give it to an officer, it'll end up lost or broken, right? So from that aspect, you got to have the ability to know how to secure the device that's out there. So online, offline access, anytime, anywhere, on any device. That's key, because especially in the mobile space, you don't know what kind of access you're going to have, right? Where you're going to go, you can kind of plan for it, but you never know where those black holes are going to pop up. Real-time information availability and sharing. Now, what that means is that it's no one likes to wait, right? I need to know when something's changed. I need to know what I need to know at that exact moment to do my job or make it more efficient, right? But don't inundate me with a ton of information where I'm so distracted that I'm not going to use it. I don't get any information because it's so much that's vying for my attention. Role and group-based access to data. So having my detectives, my officers, my administrators, right? My dispatchers, my EMS, my fire, my battalion chiefs. All those guys have the ability to have information to share. But once you're in this environment, you now can flip a switch and drop the silos, and now have information sharing because everyone's contributing to the same system. Makes it very flexible. Database encrypted at all levels, from creation to consumption and long-term storage. So data availability for right now versus data availability 5 years from now, right? I remember being at the scene for one instance. I want to find out more information about that. Well, it's not in the real-time aspect because this is where it's 5 years old, right? Having the ability to retrieve that information is paramount. Mobile-first solutions. So decide what device strategy you want to do, but make sure the application developer has the ability to support your device strategy, right? It's one thing, for the amount of applications that are out there, that's fine, but they shouldn't be dictating to what device strategy you should go down, right? It's not like the old days where it's like PC versus Apple, you gotta have these minimum requirements on this device and all this other thing, right? Application developers are going to develop for the applications and devices because that's how they make their money, right? It's their job to support you, not the other way around. Improve efficiencies and ROI. So if the application doesn't bring value, don't go with it, right? You need to see immediate return on investment on what's going on here. It's like with the shrinking budgets, you don't have the ability to guess, right? Try it out. Insist on a pilot, right? Try it with a select number of users, but find out. Don't have the ability to just commit on a whim of what's out there, right? I mean, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of things that you're developing for, but make sure it's something that's going to bring value to what you're offering. And when it comes down to it, the app is really just an enabler. It's what the users become by using your application, right? This is where they become the superheroes, right? So if they're just using the application and it's like, okay, but I could do this simply with something else. It's who your users become based on using your application is what defines, as them become the superheroes that they're doing. So if they're not getting value just based on their everyday aspect, then that's something that you've got to make sure that the value is in the product. So one thing to note on this too. So everything I talked about today, this isn't a sales presentation, but I have to mention it. But everything I mentioned today, SceneDoc does. So having the ability to bring all this information together, I invite you guys to come over to 1307, which is our booth. We can give you a full demonstration on everything that's going on. But everything we talked about today, as far as the information security, availability, documentation, everything we talked about here, we do. But also, we're designing for the guidelines that the APCO integration work group is actually defining for as well. So being a lead on that, we can help guide those principles and help guiding those for other individuals as well. So it's not just us, look how great we are, but we're actually implementing the things that APCO is actually defining for the entire market. So being a leader in the industry as far as this aspect goes, we can show you firsthand how we're accomplishing all the security aspects that we talked about today. If you want to have a benchmark to understand what to look for in an application, please stop by. I'll be more than happy to give you guys a demonstration over the next few days, and we can walk you through and give you the specific points within the application, not so much, if you want to say the application is great, but the specific points of where I'm bringing these together is really where I'd like to show you guys what quality application you should be looking for and having a benchmark, at least in your head, when you look at these and compare other applications, to understand where the quality is, what to look for, where the security aspects are, and don't settle for anything less. So, just like buying a car, right? It's like, you can go get this one, but the reviews on this one are much better, and we provide that information that's there. So with that, I've got a couple extra minutes here for questions and answers. If anybody has anything, I can walk you through. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, a couple questions. First of all, I really liked your last statement up there about how an app is just an enabler. It's just a way to make your job done better. Oh, okay.
I'll show you.
So I have two questions. First is regarding an app that's an enablement to make the superheroes, make the job better. So one question is, do you have an example of an app that actually does just that? And the second question I have is actually off the integration slide you had. You had a term called RESTful API. If you could explain what that is.
Sure. Yep. So we do have an example of the application, SceneDoc. So you can come by to check that out. But it's not a sales presentation. But along the same lines, so just to see where each of those components, we actually have step by step to show you how the security breaks into the integration, all the different things that we're talking about. So we have integrated several large vendors as well using those RESTful APIs. So RESTful APIs is basically it's a standard that allows us to basically have simple integrations such as like a web-based access, so you can actually post directly to another service or application, but also get information back. So you have the ability to override, you have the ability to post within databases. So when they receive that information on their end, that interface allows you to have simple integration between the two devices that are there, two servers. So you can have machine-to-machine type conversations. So as soon as that user takes his action to save a file, the backend server then pushes that information through a REST API, pushes that to another service, or it could stay residing directly on the system that's there. But it's a very standards-based operation that's very useful today.
Does it require backend services to pitch and catch it?
Yes. So that's what those interfaces do on the backend. So so the backend services are basically the post and the gets back and forth are enabling that. So any other questions? Yes, sir.
A question for you on application distribution. So when someone wants SceneDoc, do you find, how do they get it out to the customer? Do they have 1,000 officers? Do you find that they're telling them to download it in the App Store? Are they sending APKs to sideload it? Or are they using enterprise mobility management to manage the distribution of it?
Sure. Yeah, so along the app distribution, so we find that majority of the industry right now is going to iPhones. Is a very much very heavily used iPads, iPhone type distribution. So obviously the App Store is the main distribution aspect for that. Same thing with Google Play for consumer-based Android devices. I know some vendors that don't have Google mobile services specifically, sideloading aspects, or maybe they have their own application store that's up there, so they can sideload the information directly onto their specific devices. I know Amazon has their own app store as well. You can sideload and then have access to all the applications that are out there. But mainly from the distribution perspective is that we have an ability to publish through our website. You can download the various versions of for Android, for instance. You can sideload that. We don't charge anything for the downloads because it's a subscription for a per user price in the back end. So it's free to download and make it available to that user. So we find that the biggest, easiest way to do it is actually from the application stores that are from the consumer devices that are out there. So, but all the technology and all the security aspects on the back end are still involved with that, even though they're coming from the consumer world. So, answer. Okay, cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Hope you got some information on this. And booth 1307. We'll see you guys there in a couple minutes. Thank you.